Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, my international people. This is Louise Uwachu broadcasting live from Vancouver, Canada. How are you, my international people? Welcome to the You and I Talk Show, November 8th, 2012. And guess what? We're not talking about the elections. We don't care about politics. We know exactly what's happening. $2.5 billion spent on what? Anyways, so the show today is titled Tales of a Lion by Ellen Cumbers, and that is also a title of a book that I have read, and today we have the author of the book on the show, Tales of a Lion or Tales of a Lioness. She's a woman. So you'll get to hear from her and hear about this very, very interesting and fascinating book and all kinds of life stories from New York in America. And whoa. All right, so let's bring her in and get going. Good evening, Ellen.
Good evening, and thank you for having me, Louise.
I'm so happy to speak to you. I was just saying how you sent me your book, and I actually read it.
I'm really pleased.
I was giving you an insider secret of the media, how we don't really read your books. We don't really read the books from authors. We get many books. We don't really read them. It's just for publicity and for just talk. But every now and then you get a book and it's interesting and you're reading it and you find yourself reading it. So your book was such a book. Got me reading instead of working.
Well, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, I'm so happy that reading is part of my work. So
it's difficult for me. I don't read that much, and the reason is because I choose to write and I don't want other thoughts in my head.
Yeah. That's I know exactly what you're talking about. When you're writing, you don't want to be influenced by other thoughts out there.
Right.
Or maybe you don't want to find out that you're not that original.
Yeah, well, you'll have a great idea, and then somebody will say, "Oh, well, did you read that in Clancy's novel?" And then you'll be like, "Oh no." I thought it was mine.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure all these stories are actually mine.
Yes. They are very, very original. You write in such an original way. You start from when you're a child, and in the beginning of the book, you can feel the child. It's like it's a child telling you their story. And as you go through the book, the child grows up and keeps telling you the story. And you keep reading it. It's crazy. I mean, it's like, is this from the same person? How did you do that?
Well, it's interesting. I did not write those stories in that order.
Mhm.
I wrote them in a much different order. I jumped all over the place, and in fact, got up each morning, and whatever memory I had in my head, that's what I sat down and wrote.
Mhm.
And I made them isolated stories. And then I met a woman who was an editor, and she's the one that rearranged the order of them and put it all together.
Wow, what would we do without these editors out there, eh?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I think she, in fact, I went through 3 different titles. Mm-hmm. I was all over the place. I really did not know how to pull it together, and then she pulled it together very nicely, and then we came up with the final title, Tales of a Lion, because of the prologue, which is the story of the training and how I was labeled with the lion personality.
Mm-hmm. So, are you a lion, though, in the astrology, or this?
No.
No.
No, I'm actually a Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means. But no, I'm not a lion. And oddly, and this isn't in the book at all, but at one point, against advice, I took the test and shared it with people at work. and they all took the test. You know, it was just something to do to kind of break the monotony and give them a little R&R time, you know, rest. And so they all took it, and, you know, we went through the key and decided what animal personality they were, and then they grabbed another blank, and I said, what are you doing? And they said, we're doing one on you now. And I said, no, I've already done it. It's not necessary, you know. And they went through and they kind of very seriously discussed, well, is she this, is she this, is she this? And then they gave it to me and they said, okay, correct that one. And I did, and it came out monkey.
Huh.
And I said, I don't understand. And they said, that's how we see you. And I realized at that point, this group that was talking to me, it was my job to go and improve morale. So to them, I was a monkey. So I think people do have different aspects of different personalities that they can tap into.
I see. Now I think of myself as a bird. Do you have any bird personality in the
You think of yourself as a bird? You know what? Probably, I don't know. Do you enjoy speaking one-on-one more than you enjoy a group?
It depends on the group, but these one-on-ones is precisely why I do the radio hosting. I can actually interview one-on-one person in depth and get them to tell me things that they're not supposed to be telling me. You're going to tell me things later on.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the warning. Just as an example, the characteristic of a turtle is not lazy, but it is very kind of methodically focused. And so turtles typically speak to people one-on-one, and they don't like groups. They don't do well in groups. And ironically, everyone in my family, the oldest boy, we have 6 children, and the oldest boy and the youngest boy are monkeys. Everyone else, including my husband, is a turtle.
Wow, and you're the lion.
And I'm the lion.
So
and even if you have a group of lions, there's always one dominant lion.
It's very interesting that at home you're a lion and at work you're a monkey.
Yeah, you're picking up on that, aren't you? Well, you know, for years people had told me at work, at the time I was an administrative assistant, and people always told me, you know, well, people are afraid of you. You know, you're going to have to talk to them easy. And I said, oh, you know, don't put that on me. It's that they don't have any spine. And it was always their fault. Like, they just can't stand up to me, and you know, that's ridiculous. And I literally, after having gone through this training, which I did rather reluctantly. I mean, it was a day kind of as a bonus, but I didn't care about it one way or the other, and it was the most enlightening thing I had ever been through. It really changed my life in so many ways. But yeah, I realized I was roaring at people, and I was at one point I was actually knuckles down on this woman's desk, leaning over her. You know, telling her, yes, you will give me this when I'm asking for it. And I saw her just shrinking in her chair, and I was like, what is wrong? And then I literally looked down and realized, oh my goodness, I'm roaring at her. And so, yeah, you can, when you're conscious of something, you can temper it, I think, a little bit, if you want to.
Wow. Now, this story tells of a lion. It's kind of an autobiography of your life from childhood to now. And,
well, almost now. Yeah, it's almost now.
Yeah, almost now. So let's take you back to the relationship with your father. First of all, is he still alive, and what has happened to him? Because let me kill it for people who are reading the book. There's in your childhood, it was very difficult because he was getting drunk and beating up people, including your mom and stuff like that. So what has he become, and how's that relationship?
My father is deceased, and I did not know that. I actually heard it from somebody I didn't even know. He committed suicide, which, you know.
Was he drunk?
Unstable policeman. I mean, it kind of fit.
Did they ever tell you the situation? Because, drinking was a big problem.
No, I was told that he shot himself. So I assumed in the head. I didn't even ask. I mean, literally, the last time I saw him, I was about 6 years old.
In that event that you describe in the book on your birthday?
It wasn't my birthday. No,
Oh.
It was not my birthday. It was just a day, but that was the last time I saw him.
Oh, wow. And so, what about the relationship with your mother? I mean, I thought that was a really great example that her husband is a cop, and the husband beats her up. She calls the cops. The cops are friends of her husband, and they're trying to cover for him. And
Right.
she stands up. Now she has to fight the other cops.
Right. Well, she didn't have to fight them, but she had to stand up to them.
Yeah.
Which she did. She really did have a lot of moxie, and I must tell you that in spite of growing, my younger years in a household like that was so volatile, the one thing I really did put together was that this is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You don't put up with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I was kind of hardwired to seek out people that were heavy drinkers, and that's why my first husband was a heavy drinker. But I knew not to stay in it.
Mm-hmm.
Which so I'm grateful for that. But I found out, and this isn't in the book, but I found out through conversations with my mother, subsequent to writing this, that my father never wanted to be a police officer. He was forced to by his family.
Oh, no.
His father was a cop. His father before him was a cop. His father before him was a cop. Nobody asked him what he wanted to be because nobody was interested in his opinion.
Oh, no.
Right. So he had to be a police officer. He didn't want to be, and he caved.
Oh,
it
wow.
kind of makes him less of a demon when you know the story behind it. But, of course,
Mm-hmm.
as a kid, he wasn't even a demon. He was just, it was just overwhelming to me that he was that out of control.
Yeah, well, when people are doing what they don't want to do, they find ways to rebel. And
Right.
one of the ways to rebel is that.
Right. And if on that one instance, that's the one story I know about how he interacted with his parents. And if they weren't interested in him making his own career choice as an adult, I can only imagine nobody listened to him his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So I get how he got where he got.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was just totally miserable. I mean,
Wow.
He really was. He was totally miserable.
Yeah, you have to do what you like. I mean, there's no way you can wake up every day and go to a job that you hate and not be miserable.
Right.
And make everyone around you miserable too,
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think the other side of that is imagine telling your family that you don't want to do this and nobody's listening.
Mhm.
I mean, that must have been awful.
Yeah. They're like, ha ha ha. What do you want to be? You don't want to be a cop. Ha ha.
Right. Exactly. So that was that was kind of an eye opener for me.
Mhm.
I know my mother, as I wrote in the book, my mother remarried when I was about 14, and up until that time, she literally stayed married to him even though he was gone. He was put out of the house by court order. She was never going back with him. We were not in touch with him.
Mhm.
But she was not going to divorce him, and her reasoning was, and she said this to me, she said, he's not going to do this to anybody else.
Oh.
And so she wouldn't divorce him.
She wouldn't divorce him so he wouldn't be with another woman and destroy the other woman too?
Or destroy another family.
Wow.
That was her. Yeah. Yeah, he actually had been married before he married her.
Oh, no.
And had 2 children in California and left them, or they put him out. I don't know which. I didn't ask.
Oh, I see. So he was going to move on to another woman.
Correct.
Ouch, 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 ouch. So now this led you to grow up into a person who has what kind of relationship with men and women in general?
Well, I think probably I was seeking a relationship with some sort of male role model. You know, there was no male figure in the house. My brother was essentially gone, and he was not really a male figure of any consequence per se. And then, you know, we had this relative that my mother decided could stay at the house for a little while. He was only supposed to stay for a few days. That's kind of how I took it, that he just needed a place to stay until he got himself set up with an apartment or whatever. And so he was staying at the house, and then he basically just appeared in my room in the middle of the night and molested me. And I was still very young. I didn't get what was going on until it was kind of too late.
Yeah, this was a very disturbing, you know, part in the book where you talk about child abuse. And then you later on discover that this individual, not only had he abused you, but he had also abused your sister.
Yeah, and we found that, we actually had that conversation. I was in my 30s. And it was very strange because she called me. We lived in different states at the time. And she called me, and we were on the phone 15 minutes, and all of a sudden she was asking me about this. And I thought, where is this, like, how could she possibly know this? You know, at first, when she started asking me, I thought, oh, my God, how has she found this out? I haven't told a soul. It never occurred to me. Like, even then, it didn't occur to me. And when she told me, I almost just fell over. And it wasn't, I want to say it was maybe 5 months later that she died. Very unexpectedly. I mean, she was young when she died.
Yeah.
So it came out that, yeah, we were both abused by the same person. And at that point, if I was in any way able to suppress the anger, that did it.
Yeah. So you exploded. And then your mother wanted him to be at the funeral. That was like a crazy moment. In the book.
Yeah.
I was like, excuse you, I'm going to have a gun at the funeral and he's going to die on the same day, you know? That's what I was thinking.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to shoot him, although I can't say that throughout my life I didn't visualize doing that many times. But, no, I was going to expose him. I was going to just start in detail screaming at him and expose him in front of everyone. And that was basically how we came to an agreement, even though she was very disappointed, I think is the best way I could say it, that I was so upset about this and that I couldn't separate the two things. You know, she said, well, he's still a relative and he's still entitled to come and pay his respects. And I thought, I don't know how you are wired, but I'm telling you, don't do this.
Yeah, like what is respect to how a person did not pay respect? You know when you say pay respect, they paid abuse. Now, when the person was alive, now you want the person to pay respect when the person is dead?
Yeah, she goes on what is proper for appearance sake. You know what I mean? And I think that's partly how people were hardwired back then. That's what people did. You know, you didn't talk about problems in the street. You didn't let people know that you had trouble in your house. You know, she used to tell me not to tell my people that my father drank, and I thought, you can't be serious. If they aren't blind or deaf, they know he drinks. and she literally didn't want me to talk about it.
A lot of cultures want to hide problems. Some reason some people think that when you hide problems and you pretend like they're not there, that they're going to solve themselves miraculously.
No, they didn't. It was like acid just eating away every day. There was not a day in my life that I didn't think about it, and there wasn't a day in my life that I didn't struggle with trying to convince myself it didn't happen. You know, to try to put it out of my mind, and there was no doing it. I couldn't do it.
And so you talk about how you celebrated when this guy died.
Yes, I did.
I feel like we should have another party.
It was awful because I thought I should have confetti. You know, I really wanted to throw confetti.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I thought at last that, you know, my airspace is mine.
Mhm.
You know I'll never run into him again, and he'll never. And quite frankly, I had run into him when I was about 18.
Mhm.
And that was even kind of, just so slimy that, oh, you know what I was thinking about? I was just thinking about the other day, and I thought, you can't be saying this to me.
Mm.
And I just stayed gone at that point. I mean, I was 18 years old, and so, But
wow.
My mother thought I was a totally unruly child. I mean, she still doesn't put it all together.
Yeah, like, why can't you be a good girl and behave and be quiet?
No, but it's not really funny, but I've spoken to a few people about this, more so since the book, obviously, because I didn't really talk about this. But had I told her when I was a child that this was done to me and this was the reaction I got, I would have killed myself.
Oh yeah, I can definitely understand that. Now this has led you to grow up and to come with a program which helps students on how to learn how to deal with abuses like this. And then you've come up with a program because you're saying that sometimes for a child, it's not the best option to tell their immediate family. So tell people what your program, what all this has led you to create.
Well, I had an idea, and it actually came up in the middle of a conversation while I was doing an interview, and it was very unsettling because I had this kind of brainstorm, and that wasn't what we were talking about. So I had the thought, I didn't want to lose it, but I didn't want to lose my train of thought in the conversation. So it was like very overwhelming when it hit me.
Mhm.
But I realized they always tell children, if someone bothers you, they hit you, they bully you, they abuse you sexually, whatever, tell a grown-up.
Mhm.
Go tell a teacher, tell your coach, tell your parents, tell somebody.
Mhm.
And they never do. And I realized the reason that they don't is because most of the time when someone does something like this to you as a child, they have been brought into your life by one of those adults.
Mhm.
Not that they deliberately know that these people are going to do this, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's someone that is known by your circle.
Mhm.
It's either somebody that works in the school or is affiliated with a coach, or it's a friend of the family, or it's a relative, the crazy uncle, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's always somebody that's already in that loop.
Yeah.
And as a child, you look at adults and you think, okay, well, if they know them and they think they're okay, they're going to side with them. They're not going to side with me.
Mhm.
So I have nobody to tell.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I thought, okay, so you need somebody that can advocate for the child, but it can't be another child because this is not information you wanted to put into the hands of a fifth grader.
Mhm.
So who's a reliable child? And I started thinking honor students, high school honor students.
Mhm.
And so, ironically, I have 6 children, and a few of them were actually in the National Honor Society, and I remembered that one of the things you have to do to maintain your status in the National Honor Society is you must do community service.
Mhm.
And so I spoke to the House representative, not that I'm that politically motivated, but she happens to be a friend of ours for a long time.
Mhm.
She is the state representative in Decatur for our area, and I spoke to her and I said, I had this idea, and I'm thinking that we should set up honor students to be mentors for younger kids in the school so that if anything happens, these children know they can go to them. What elementary school student wouldn't go to a cheerleader or a football player or, somebody from the high school?
Yeah.
and tell them I need help.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the whole point, is it's not going to stop kids from being abused. I hate to say this, but I think that type of thing is always going to go on. What the program will do, if it works, is it will get people help 30 years earlier.
Yeah, because I mean, people always stay with the information, or they tell adults, and adults don't do anything about it because they're already in that adult world of keeping up appearances and fake connections. So a child may indeed be more willing to break the barriers that they don't know exist yet, you know?
Right. Right. And I think for honor students, there's, in my mind, there was a twofold reason. One, an honor student will have enough stability in their own life that we could be training them in something like short-term counseling systems, that they know what questions to ask and they can handle what they hear, you know, because they will need some sort of counseling to get through it, even though it didn't happen to them.
Yeah.
The other thing is that they will have credibility.
Yeah.
If they need to report this, you know, because then they'll be going to the school authorities and turning it over to the adults, so the adults will actually handle the problem.
Yeah.
But they will help the kid break the silence.
Yeah, and this would be coming from like these honor students, which are supposed to be the smart kids. So you have some sort of credibility because it's not just gossip in the school.
Right. Well, when you think about it, kids get out of high school and they go to Afghanistan. The difference between a high school senior and a soldier is 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, we're telling them they're kids. I don't think they are. I think some of them are right there. And it's high time we start telling people what they are inheriting in society, good and bad. They should know this stuff happens. This is what we need to do to address it. I don't know about stop it, but this will address it. This will at least get people help and get people talking.
Wow.
So they are going to implement it in the town where I live. The state representative, her name is Terry Collins, and she approached the PACT, PACT, which is Parent and Children Together, or Parent. It's a school organization. If I'm misrepresenting the acronym, I apologize, but she went to them, and they had a program that they were trying to kind of get together about doing puppet shows and telling kids about inappropriate touching and that kind of thing. And what they're doing is they're combining the two. And so they're going to have these puppet shows in the school, but they will have the honor students there to sit and do almost like focus group conversations after the puppet show.
I see. Now,
and so then they will introduce themselves.
Have you investigated this child abuse idea out there? Like, what are these men up to? Are they sick? What really pushes a person to be an abuser? Have you looked into that?
I honestly don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that wonders, and I say wonders, I really don't know, were they abused themselves? I have never felt an inclination to force myself on anybody, particularly somebody younger. But I mean, I've just never felt that urge. So I don't understand if it's something that's more privy to men. I mean, I just don't understand it. I really don't. I had enough trouble functioning on the other side of it, so I really can't speculate. I just don't know. I know it's wrong. I don't think it makes anybody happy. I don't think there's any way anybody can rationalize themselves through this being a good idea. You know, on any level.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand it. But it's funny. Not funny, but strange. I spot inappropriate behavior almost like I have night vision. I mean, it's really weird. I can sit. I was sitting in an auditorium recently, and there was a man there with his daughter, and he was sitting on a bench, and she was sitting on the edge of the bench, so there was kind of an arm there. And the girl was maybe 11 years old, and he was visibly crowding her space. And he had his arm around her, so he was sitting there, but he was almost on top of her. And the girl sat with her hand across, like her hands were crossed across her chest on her shoulders, and she was curled over, like she was trying to get him to get his hand off her. And I couldn't take my eyes off her. I thought, oh, here we go. And I didn't know them. And I saw her get up and leave the room, and I got up and left the room. And she went to the bathroom, and I went to the bathroom, and I just tried to start a conversation with her, which I'm sure seemed kind of weird. And she seemed fine in the bathroom, but then she came back out, and when she sat down, I mean, literally, she sat down, and you could tell it was almost like the hair on her neck was going up, that she just didn't want to sit there. And I thought, oh, Lord. So I went up to somebody and just kind of pointed them out, and I said, I don't know if you know these people, but you might want to talk to her. I don't know her. Somebody needs to talk to her, because I something's wrong. I can see it.
It's people say that body language says a lot.
Yes.
So
and you
now
can
know
see
how
it. When a kid doesn't want to be touched, you can see it.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like getting a flu shot of the brain. You just become a little more attuned to it. But in fairness, I was not so attuned as a teenager. I was all over the map.
Yeah. Now, you spoke to me earlier, or when we were off the air, about how the book actually came to be. You didn't start off thinking, okay, now I'm going to sit down and write a book.
No. I had been at a job for many years. I had been at the same job for about 15 years, and they decided to do a reorganization, and they eliminated my job and laid me off. And I was very kind of, stricken with, am I happy? Am I sad? Am I frightened? I was kind of all over the place. But the longer you sit, the angrier you get. And so I was really angry, and I was venting. Sitting in the house by myself, now in the middle of a recession, and I can't find a job. And I was just venting, and so I wrote a couple of articles on how angry I was about reorganizations and corporations and no loyalty and that kind of stuff. And every day that's what I did, kind of to help me get through it. And I don't know, I wrote 4, 5, 6 articles, and then I wrote an article about there was a big thing going on about Catholic priests being accused of abusing either older boys or whatever.
Yeah.
And I wrote a big article about that, and I think that's what kind of triggered it. And I went from that article to just starting to have kind of one childhood memory after another. And so every day I would write one little story about something that happened to me and put it out on this blog on the web. And I ended up getting people reading it. And I was so stunned, and it was almost like testing the waters in a way, because again, I wasn't much for telling. I've always been, I guess, a storyteller, but I've never really told the stories that mattered.
Yeah. Yeah, the storytellers just tell a story to entertain the crowd.
Right.
And then
right.
one
I would tell
day,
the funny stories.
Yeah, the funny stuff.
So I was writing these,
paper.
And then I was getting feedback from people, and it was kind of letting me know that, okay, this isn't so bad. They don't think you're a bad person or you're stupid or, and a lot of people would say, oh, I can't believe that's so awful, and I had something similar happen, and and that's the other thing. so many women have had this happen to them.
Mhm.
And I remember watching a talk show years ago on television, and I don't know if it was Oprah. I mean, it was a long time ago, but the statement was made, and I was sitting watching the show, and the statement was made: 1 in 3 women have either been attacked or abused or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember, very tongue-in-cheek, I said, yeah, and the other 2 aren't talking. Because I think it's higher. I honestly think it's higher than 1 in 3.
Wow. It's
So yeah, since my book had come out, and I'm nobody. I'm just a person. I'm not a known writer. I'm nobody famous. But my people that I know that I grew up with started reading the book. And one by one, everybody had a story.
Yeah.
And it was scary to me. I mean, it was really scary. I thought, what did we grow up through?
Yeah.
What is going on in the world that this is happening?
Now, let's tell people that you were born in New York and you grew up in New York.
Yes, I was born in the Bronx.
You were born in the Bronx, grew up in New York, and right now you live in Alabama. You've never really lived outside the United States.
No, I wish I had. I would have gladly taken an overseas assignment. It just never happened.
You talked about in your book of your trip to Europe. Did you have just that one trip to Europe, or have you traveled to Europe since then?
No, I have had several trips. I was very lucky. The company that I worked for was an international company, and so I fortunately got into a position where I was being required to travel more than once. That first trip was actually a bonus that someone had given me.
Yeah.
And which was such a treat. But then after that, I got to go. I want to say I made 3 more trips, and I was actually scheduled to go to Malaysia, and then they had budget cuts, and of course the trip was canceled. But I actually had gotten my inoculations to go and everything. So they were going to let me go to Malaysia too. But I've been to Greece, Belgium, Italy, France, Amsterdam, London.
Now, how about Africa, where the real lions live? Because you're talking about Tales of a Lion and lions roaring, and your main question is, do lions always have to be roaring?
I have met a woman who, through other friends on Facebook, and it's funny, she posted pictures of lions. And I started writing, and I said, I wish I knew you before I put this book out, because you have the best pictures of lions. And I asked her, do you have a picture of a lion? Because I'm writing a sequel now. And so I was asking her, do you have a certain kind of a picture of a lion? And so she, like 10 minutes after I asked her, and she writes back and she said, you mean something like this? And it was perfect. I mean, it was I will use this picture for the cover for the next book. And I said, you should be a wildlife photographer. I said, I do photography, and your pictures are very good. I said, this is wonderful. And she said, no, I don't think it's for me. And I said, no, trust me, we could take these pictures and make a coffee table book. And she said, I'm a vet. A veterinarian. And I said, are you kidding? And she said, no, I work in I hope I can say this right, the chamois. It's a refuge in Africa. And they protect, like, the rhinoceros and all this, because the rhinos are always being poached. And so I'm learning all about the challenges of wildlife, and the various things that people do to them, which is awful. But I have an open invitation to go there, and I hope someday to be able to.
Yes. Now, you know that lions do not socialize with giraffes in real life, though.
Yes, I am aware of that.
And
Yes,
despite
and
the
I
fact
know
that you may be a lion in your test, don't go testing any lions when you do eventually go.
Well, I went. I worked for a while on the Gulf oil spill. You've heard about the Gulf oil spill?
Yeah.
I worked on the Gulf oil spill for 2.5 years. And one of the places that I was based in the Gulf had a zoo, and the zoo had put in a new program where they said you can spend an afternoon with a tiger cub. And you pay so much money, and it helps kind of support the zoo. And you go in, and they put you in a pen. So I want to say it's maybe 30 by 50. It's a grassy area, fenced off, and there's a zoo employee in there with you, and they bring in 2 or 3 lion cubs, and you just spend the hour with them.
Oh, you just tease them with human meat?
No, you don't tease them. You just sit there. And
I know you're the human meat that they should be.
No.
But
they're
you're
really
teasing
sweet. I mean, at that point, but their paws are huge. I mean, that these animals are going to get really big, but they're really cute. They sleep a lot, so they may not even stay awake while you're in there with them, and you know that ahead of time. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do, and they instruct you. If the tiger comes to you, that's fine, but don't force it to stay. Like if it tries to walk away from you, don't try to force it to stop, and don't pick it up and be rough with it and all this kind. They're very protective of the animals, and so that's the closest I've come. I was actually kind of cuddling with this tiger cub, but I wasn't. I was actually very cautious. I mean, literally, while I was sitting there, I was looking at a full-grown tiger, kind of on the other side of the zoo. Who
wow.
I felt was looking at me saying, "Get your hands off that cub." And they said, "No, that's not the parents. The parents aren't even on site." And I said, "I don't think it matters. I think they get that we're not supposed to be in here, and they don't like it."
Yeah, well, they have been
get out?
they have been kidnapped from their natural environment, and now they're just here for our entertainment, pretty much.
Well, they were there until they were, I want to say, 3 months old, and then that's it. Then they're gone.
Ooh.
Then they go back to where they live, and there's a man who raises them, who lives in Florida. And I guess this is how they pay for their food and their upkeep, and because it's not cheap to feed them. But
no, definitely not. So we have a few minutes left. How's your family doing now? And how's your husband? Your husband in the book is a very nice man. And
my husband is a prince. Yeah, my husband is great.
What sign is he? Is he a lion too,
no.
or what is he?
My husband is a Sagittarius. And
so,
he's quiet actually. But he's very gentle, and he's and which is not to say he is. I mean, he's a very strong man physically, and in fact he does construction. So, I mean, he works physically, and he's but he's just a very, very good man, and he makes me feel very safe.
So how did he deal with this life, this crazy life of yours that you had lived before him?
I don't. Well, first of all, he didn't know about it until I blurted it out to my mother. I hadn't told him either. And I remember him saying, because I was pretty emotionally shaken at this point in time, and my mother kind of walked away after the conversation, and he kind of said, "Well, nobody's going to bother you here. I mean, I'm here. Don't worry about this." I mean, that was just his attitude. Nobody's going to bother you. I'm not going to let anybody bother you. It's all good.
Mhm.
And I was like,
So
okay.
he's a family man. You guys have 6 children.
We have 6 children, and we have 4 grandchildren.
Wow. Now, was he always a family person, or what made him to be a family? What was his family background that
His
made?
family background is he is number 7 of 10 children.
Mhm.
And he loves kids, and he would work 20 hours a day and then come home and do things around the house if I had a list of things I wanted him to do. I mean, he's just a very good giving person.
Mhm. So definitely deserves 6 children because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want
he
to
definitely does.
give children to a man who's a good man who knows how to take care of them. You don't want to give many children to the wrong person.
Oh no, he's really I must admit he has more patience than I do. Yeah, he's very good with them. He taught them each how to ride a bicycle, and he's taught them how to use all different tools, you know, the boys especially, but he's shown the girls, whoever wants to know, he shows them. He taught them all how to swim, and he's just really good. He's just a really good person.
Nice. So what are your plans for the future? Where do you intend to take this book, and where is it taking you, or where are you taking it?
You know, I wish I knew. It's really I'm in a strange place. I have a regular job. I mean, I'm working again.
Mhm.
Like I said, I worked on the oil spill, and I just recently, and this was very unusual, but I just started a job that I didn't even apply for.
Wow.
Yeah, this recruiter called me, and she said, "Hi, I found your resume on the internet, and I have a job that would just be perfect." And I thought, "Oh, you're very sweet, but I don't want to sell insurance." You know, you get a lot of these people that find you, and they think, you know, oh, whatever, we'll make you a salesperson for this company or that company. And I said, "No, I don't really." And she said, "I'm not with insurance." And I said, "Well, who are you?" And she told me, and lo and behold, this girl did have a perfect job for me. So I actually started a job as a project manager, and I will be managing many, many jobs at once, which will be quite fun, and promoting my book kind of around that in my spare time, and then writing the sequel in addition to that. I have no idea where it's going to go.
That's really nice. So you're going back to being a lion.
I'm going back to being a lion, yeah. Well, a lion/monkey, as they say. But I enjoy staying busy. I would love, you know, on the one hand, to think, oh, I could just be a writer. You know, I could just get up every morning and write, and then, you know, go about my day and this and that. And I don't know. I don't know how many books this is going to sell, or if it's going to sell, or if that's even the point. You know, sometimes you do things and the point isn't money.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, honestly, that's not why I wrote it in the first place, but I'm certainly not allergic to money. I would be fine if it sold. But I don't know. I don't know what is going to come of it. I would like to think that things will get better as a result of it, and I think that would be.
You know what? There's a lot of writers who don't actually think about the money factor, because you have a story to tell and you just write your story and you tell your story. And you find that these people who are actually thinking about money, they hire ghost writers. These are the famous people who can't even write, but they're thinking about money, and they're thinking that a book with their name on the cover would sell. So they hire a ghostwriter to write the book for them, and then they promote it. And they get paid. They get more money because they already have the publicity and the name. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I'm thinking of Tatum O'Neal as one of those people. I know she told her story, and I don't think she ever put a pen to paper, but it's her story, and out it goes. And
yeah. So
you
she
know.
thought about money. You thought about your story. That's why you're a writer. And
Yeah, we have. I actually have three going at once that I've started writing, and I've got at various stages. One is the sequel to this book, which is called The Lonesome Wail of the Lion's Roar.
Which made
that actually talks about the last 3 years. And then there's another book called The 10th Offense, which is fiction, but it explores what happens to people when they get so angry at somebody they end up, that the relationship breaks. And what I found, I had a fight with a friend, and I realized that my ego took over to rescue me. So I was so hurt that my ego said, "We'll fix this," And you start getting ideas in your head of how you can hurt this person because they hurt you, which is absolutely ridiculous. You don't want to hurt the person at all, because if you wanted to hurt them, it just doesn't make any sense. If you care enough that they are able to hurt you, you wouldn't want to hurt somebody. So it kind of explores the absurdity of that whole circle of events that, you get hurt and then your ego comes to the rescue and you listen to it and then off you go. And you end up in a bad place. You end up someplace you should never be. So that's another book. And then there's a third book that's actually called Cheesecake. And these aren't out yet. I haven't had the money to put them together, to tell you the truth. But Cheesecake is the story of on one. If you take the one side of the book, it's talking about corporate communication, how to communicate with employees. Both talking up and talking down. And then flip it over on the other side is a book about safety. And I think that the two are related. My last tour in the Gulf, I was a safety rep, and I was actually working on the beach with people that were cleaning the beach. And what I started to notice is any time I told somebody, "Gee, you have to put on your safety glasses," or you don't have your vest on, or you got to have your gloves on when you're handling the equipment or whatever, and they always got nervous and they thought they were in trouble. And so I finally thought, if I called you over and I said, "Hey, I want to talk to you for a minute," and when you came over to me, I said, "I know this man who has a job and he will pay you $50 an hour." Would you think that was something that you should be startled about, or would you be grateful that I told you? And I actually did this in a safety talk, and people started pulling their phones out to get the guy's phone number, like it was true. And I said, "I don't have a job for you for $50 an hour, but I'm saying if I called you aside and I said that, you would think I was really being a good friend and I was giving you a tip." And I said, "That's what I'm doing. If I tell you to put your safety glasses on, I'm giving you a tip. I'm not yelling at you. Nobody's in trouble. And if I forget my glasses, I would like you to tell me." Point is, I don't want to lose an eye. Not I want to fire you. And it's so part of it is that you have a certain amount of a safety message that you want to give somebody, and the other part of communication is listening. And how you listen and how you perceive what people are saying and why determines how well you absorb the information.
Definitely.
So I have all these projects, and I just haven't finished any of them yet.
I think you may need a twin.
No, I don't think the world is ready for two of me.
Wow, it has been so great, Ellen Cumbers, Tales of a Lion. Now, before we go, tell people where they can find this book and where they can find you. And if people out there just want to send you money or buy your book,
no. I don't want people to send me money.
Tell them how to do that. Well, why not?
No, because there are, there are people that don't know where their next meal is coming from.
Uh-huh.
And if you feel the urge to send somebody money, that's where you should be sending money.
Wow, you're so nice. Okay, people,
I mean,
give me the money.
no, nobody needs money that badly.
Don't
you know,
send the money.
I can't even imagine what that must be like to not know where your next meal is coming from. So I would say if you want to do something for somebody, feed somebody.
Yeah.
Feed somebody tomorrow. But if you want to read the book, you can go on Amazon.com and type in Tales of a Lion.
Yeah.
And it should come up. It's on Kindle. You can buy a book if you're a book person. If you have a Nook from Barnes and Noble, you can get the Nook version. And then there's a Tales of a Lion page on Facebook. If you type in Tales of a Lion, and if you scroll through the page, a lot of time, well, in the beginning now there's going to be announcements. I actually put an announcement on that I was going to do this radio show with you.
Yeah.
But there are also, if you keep scrolling further down, there are pictures that go with the stories on the page.
Yeah. People, it's a very, very, very captivating story. I mean, I started reading the story, and other people read the story for production purposes to see if we can invite you on the show. And then I just couldn't stop the story. I was just like, oh, I gotta read this. I gotta know what happens to this girl. So thank you very much for putting such a story out. A lot of courage in the story. So I encourage everyone to check it out. Tales of a Lion by Ellen Cambus.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
So you didn't tell me any secrets. Is there anything, any last-minute secret that you want to tell me? We have just 1 minute.
You want a secret?
Yeah.
Let's see. I can't think of it. Well, I'll tell you this. I had to change all the names in the book.
Oh. See, now
my sister's name was actually Jeannie. I mean, my sister's name is Jeannie in the book, and that's her name. But my sister's dead, too, so it wasn't really a legal issue, and she wouldn't have minded. But in terms of everybody else, I had to change every name.
So your best friends, which took you to a bachelor party and got your husband drunk and you didn't want to marry him anymore, those are not their real names.
Those are not their real names, no. And so what's funny is people that I grew up with read the book, and they started emailing me and saying, so is this so-and-so or is this, and they were trying to guess who it was. And I said, if you can't tell who it is, then you don't know. And if you were there and you don't know, then it doesn't really matter, does it?
Then you shouldn't know. That's a sign that you should not know.
Right.
Wow. Nice.
Then it just doesn't matter. But yeah, they made me. And the other thing about that I think is pretty funny is I was always afraid that I would be interviewed and somebody would say, "What about this character?" And I would forget who it was because I can't. It's not their real name.
Yeah.
So I had to make up like an index card of this one is this person and this one is this one.
Wow.
I know.
That's great. I want to know who suggested you should wear boots. Oh, no. Who suggested you have a wedding reception at Burger King? That's the last thing that I want to know.
You know what? That was actually me.
You?
That was me. Yeah, we just got up and got married, and then after we left we went to a Justice of the Peace's house. On about 5 hours notice because he got off work. He worked that day and he came home, took a shower, changed, and then we went to the Justice of the Peace, and the man's daughter played our wedding march and his wife was my witness, or the other way around. I can't remember which, but one of them played the piano and one of them stood up next to me, and in 5 minutes we were married. And when we left, he said, "Well, you want to go get a vanilla shake?" And I said, "Okay." And that's what we did. We went and got a vanilla shake, and that was 26 years ago.
And you've been married for 26 years, so it doesn't really take a big wedding day and a big ceremony to be married to the right person and stay married to the right person.
No. And you know what? And here's an interesting story, and we will close on this. I was raised Catholic, which I tell you in the book. And I as a grown woman, I spoke to, I've been to church since then. I wouldn't say I'm devoutly Catholic, but I am devoutly spiritual. And I went to church, and the Catholic priest was asking me, have you weren't married in the church? And I said, no. And he said, well, if you'd ever like to be married in the church, he said, I can arrange it, and, I'll bless the marriage. And I said, why? And he said, well, so that the marriage is actually blessed by God. And I said, aren't you guys the ones that kind of preach that God is everywhere? And he said, yes. And I said, well, I was married in Tampa, Florida, and God was there.
And according to me, you're blessed with God if you've been married with the same person for 26 years. I don't know what kind of more blessings that you would want.
No, I mean, I felt like God was there. I appreciate you willing to do a do-over, but no, God was there.
Wow, they're crazy. They are really, really crazy.
Well, I think he meant well. I mean, I didn't find any fault with the fact that he did that, but at the end of the day, I just thought it wasn't particularly necessary.
Yeah. Well, stay blessed, and he's so with you everywhere.
Well, thank you, and same to you.
It's been really fun. Thank you for being on the show.
And thank you for having me once again. I truly appreciate it, and I really appreciate you taking the time to read the book as well as speaking with me.
All right. Have a great evening.
You too, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, my international people, you've heard it for yourself. Tales of a Lion by Ellen Canvas. I don't need to tell you anymore. Just go grab the book and read the story for yourself. Fascinating. Interesting woman. Wow, I'm so happy. I love my job. Have a good night.